Hi folks, it's Andy. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, here we are for another fantastic week of questions, thankfully submitted by you wonderful people. We've got a great number of questions here. We'll jump to them in just a moment. But before we do, you know, all the YouTube stuff, all that sort of thing, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff helps people start Kendo. All right, I've gone through this before. Ring the Kendo bell, make yourself better at Kendo. Do all the YouTube stuff, but most importantly, support the channel by shopping at KendoStar.com. KendoStar.com is my Kendo equipment website. It's the best one in the entire galaxy. Of course, I would say that, but all you have to do is check out our independent reviews. You can ask the people in your dojo, and you'll find pretty quickly we're the best one. So everyone shops at KendoStar, and there's a good reason for it. Okay, KendoStar.com. You get great stuff. I get to keep the lights on, camera rolling. You get free videos. Everyone's a winner. All right, let's get into these. Okay, would you adjust your keiko in a new dojo? If I turn up to a new dojo, I wouldn't want to go in at normal 100% intensity and then find out I've completely squished a beginner or overshot the way their practice usually runs. Is this something I should consider, or should I just do my normal kendo? Yeah, you've got to sort of judge it a bit, right? You've got to judge it a bit, case by case. You can't just go in there. And it depends on your level as well, of course. You know, I mean, it depends on you. Because, you know, if you're like Nidan or below, or even Sandan and below, really, you're not really going to be able to kind of get the idea behind something like Hikitate Geiko. So, you know, you're still sort of focusing on your own kendo mainly. But, yeah, you know, what you want to do is you want to turn up there. You should get an idea throughout the Kihon. When you're doing your sort of Kihon, Kirikaishi, stuff like that, you can do that pretty much normally. But you can pretty much gauge quite quickly if somebody's not able to keep up with you. So at that point, you just need to make an internal adjustment. And go from there, really. Try to get a feel for things as well before you start. But yeah, I mean, I would sort of adjust things. Of course, I have to do that a lot when I go to a dojo I don't normally go to. You know, there's some dojos where I can be a bit more, well, a bit less restrained, shall we say. And there's others where I have to sort of really, you know, concentrate on the level of students that are at the dojo. But that, you know, I'm in a bit of a different position to most people in that when I go to a dojo, especially in the UK, I'm usually sort of the highest grade there, or one of the highest grades. So if I go to Japan, for example, and visit a new place, then I'm sort of one of the standard, you know, sort of people. So I'm usually sort of amongst peers anyway. So it's very different. But like if I was to sort of compare it to something like kids dojo in Japan, where you know, they're all smaller, not just smaller, but obviously beginners, then yeah, of course I'm going to adjust my keiko for that as well. So yeah, the answer is yes. All right, next one. For the most obvious reason in the world, there's a lot of screaming and shouting in kendo, which takes a toll on your throat, I imagine. What tips do you have to kiai better and taking care of one's throat? Also, does one's kiai get better naturally over time, or are there certain steps you have to take to improve on it? Thank you. Okay, so I think some people have already mentioned this in the comments in reply to you here. But yeah, it's not shouting from the throat, it's shouting from the diaphragm, all right, from inside. Yeah, I was actually talking about this at my own dojo on just the other day, and I was saying about how it's kikentai no ichi. Okay, so the ki is the spirit. It's not the voice, it's the spirit. So your kiai, or your hasse is the proper word actually. Your shouting has to come from inside you. Yeah, it can't just yeah has to come from inside. Yeah. Now that's difficult and it takes practice, and I know some people post links to like vocal coaches and stuff like that, which is probably a good idea. I've never used any resource like that. But I do expect it is similar in some ways to something like singing. But I don't know anything about that. But what I would say is you do definitely get the hang of it with practice. So in the beginning, you'll probably find it a bit hard. You might get a bit of a sore throat after practice, stuff like that. But with practice, you'll find that the hasse, the shouting, is linked to your breathing, and it comes from within rather than just from here. Yeah. And that's something, like I say, you'll pick it up as you go along. So don't expect it to be right away. It might be a year or two down the line, but you will start to get the hang of it. I don't have any specific tips, to be honest, on that, other than just practice. It's the answer to most things in Kendo, to be honest. Like, people ask me for that all the time. Like, how can I make my footwork better? Practice it more. Anyway, right, good. Next one. Hi, Andy. What would you consider a sign or characteristic of truly good/great Kendo? High downgrade, success in Shiai, simple experience, 30 plus years of practice, or maybe something completely different. Cheers. Okay, so this one is an interesting one. Because it's not just one thing. I think there's lots of different things that can make someone truly a great Kendoka. It doesn't have to be downgrade. It doesn't have to be success in Shiai. Those two are usually quite linked, though, I think you'll find. People who are the most successful in Shiai generally go on to achieve high downgrades. Simply experience could be a factor, or something completely differently. I mean, look, it's wrong to say that just because someone's a high downgrade, they've got great Kendo. Especially below 8th dan. Because it's too easy to pass the 7th dan in order to say that. I don't know about the 8th dan, to be honest. I don't think I'm really able to comment on that. Probably not qualified to. But it's not right to say either that only the people who are successful in Shiai have got great Kendo. Or, there's plenty of people who are successful in Shiai, and I mean successful at like a really high level, like in Japan, that I don't think have got truly great Kendo. There's plenty that do super well and then don't end up, becoming really inspirational senseis, for example. And yeah, experience, of course, is something. I mean, 30 years, probably not so much. I mean, 30 years, like loads of people have practiced Kendo for 30 years. Most Japanese people that do Kendo in their 40s have been practicing for more than 30 years. So, like 50 years or 60 years, that's impressive, or more even. There's people that have been practicing like 70 or 80 years even. So I'd say that's super great. Of course, the brilliant Hachidan senseis, I think they've got truly great Kendo. And it's not just in the dojo as well, the way that they conduct themselves in every aspect of their lives, I think is something that separates them from those that don't achieve it. But they're not, it's wrong to say they're all like that. I've met ones that aren't, let's put it that way. I'm not going to say any more on that, but just being the Hachidan or something even doesn't mean that you're a super great, amazing person. Although it probably should, but that's the life. And same with the Shiai, like I say. I guess it's a combination. There's people I've known, or do know, who I think are truly exceptional examples of fantastic Kendoka, and they don't have high dan grades, for whatever reason. Some that are maybe they've done Kendo for many years. I'm not going to talk about individuals, but people that have, you know, influenced the direction of Kendo in a particular country or in an area, or you know, like when you see the Kyoto Taikai and there's people that are still doing Kendo well into the late 90s. Or even early hundreds. I think I saw there's even senseis doing Kendo sort of in the hundreds, early hundreds. I mean, that's amazing, right? So yeah, I think it's a combination of things, and it's dependent on each individual. But yeah, you can't just assign it to one. Unfortunately, you can't just say, okay, this because Kendo is life, right? That's, as you know, my sort of thing. So I think, and if you watch my video about how Kendo makes you a better person, it's a long video, but I think it's an important one that it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. But you know, to be excellent at Kendo, great at Kendo, I think you do have to be a good example of a member of society. So yeah, not everybody achieves that, even whilst doing really great things in Kendo. It doesn't always equal that they're a great Kendoka. High dan grade is especially one of those. And so is success in Shiai, actually, and experience, because they're basically all linked together, aren't they? So yeah. I mean, experience definitely comes with the other two. But yeah, I think I know it's a vague answer, but that's where I am on it, I'm afraid. Next one. We recently had a seminar where we had some high-level senseis end the seminar off with some jigeko. It was great, but as expected, there was long lines of Kendoka waiting for them. What's the proper way to stand there waiting for them? Do we stand in single file, or do we sort of spread out and watch them do keiko with those ahead of us? And what about the shinai? How do we stand around with the shinai? I often have people bump in my shinai as they watch, or others who walk past. I end up holding my shinai in front of me, like in a praying position with the tip facing down. Any rules or etiquette around this matter? There's no rules around it, no. I don't think it's a problem to spread out slightly. Don't, like, spread out massive, like, you know, so that it's like an audience, even though it technically is. But, you know, don't spread out massively. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to watch the sensei that's practicing. See if you can learn by a Mitori Geiko. I definitely think that's a good idea. Something I always try to do. In terms of how to hold the shinai, I understand what you're saying. You're saying like you'd hold it like instead of sort of at your side like that, you sort of hold it like this, which is all right. You know, there's no rule against it. It's fine momentarily, but when you're holding it at your side like this, I can't write credit. You don't have to hold it this way. You can kind of hold it like this as well, right? You don't have to hold it like, you know, like you're in the Knights Templar or something. Like, you can just hold it that sort of way. I think is fine as well. And then yeah, when someone's walking around, they're not gonna bump into it as much. I think either's fine though. I mean, there's no rule about it. It's just a bit weird to stand there holding it like that the whole time. But if it's comfortable for you, fine. I don't think it's a big deal either way. Hey Fish Sensei, could you do a little in-depth view on how to tie the men properly? I've watched a video on it and I've gotten everything else down except for getting the men put on properly without it coming undone before I even tie it, especially when trying to make the knot when it's on from behind. I'd like to see how you made it and pull it so that it becomes even and not super long. Thanks again. Okay. The thing is I do sort of cover that in that video. All right. What you've got to do. All right. Let me get them in. Oof. Okay. So, all right. Let's have a look. So here I am with my beautiful Kamui men. Isn't this so awesome? Love this burger. Okay. Let's have a look. So, when you tie this men, all right, you've got it on your head. Now what you've got to do is, I think the best thing to do is practice at home with it in front of you, like on your lap, like in front of you like this, right in front of you. So it's like sat in front of you. And then it's the same motion, except instead of your hands in front of you, they're just behind you, yeah? But you're going to pull the himo around, yeah, keeping them flat. And you're going to tie it in a bow. And now, how we're going to tie it in a bow? Well, how can I show this on here, right? I've shown this before, all right? I've shown this before, but when you tie this knot, the first part is quite important, all right? See if I can get to an angle where you can see. This part here, all right? This part here, right? We've got a string that comes out the bottom of the knot and a string that comes out the top, yeah? This is the important part. You need to pull this bit tight here, all right? And then when I make don't do any sort of different type of knot. Like I know some people like make 2 loops and do weird sort of stuff here. Don't do anything like that. Do it this way, alright? Just do it this way and it'll be fine and correct, yeah? Make a loop out of one side. Now I like to make it out of the side where the string's coming down, alright? That means that the string that's coming out the top has to go over the top when I wrap it around, not underneath. If I take it underneath, it's going to be tied wrong, okay? So here we go. I make the loop out of the string that's coming out the bottom. Then the one that's coming out the top goes over the top for me to make another loop on this side. Alright? And then I've got the right, before I adjust anything, it's already the yoko musubi, okay? The sideways knot. It's not the vertical knot. Alright? That's the one that comes untied. Then, as you can see, because I'm not like that good at it, I guess, I've already got an uneven set of loops. So what I'm going to do first before I do anything else is I'm going to adjust this loop in my hands so it's the same length as the other one. Alright, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of them and I've got the trailing bit, the string bit, in my hand as well as I adjust the length of these. Now I'm trying to hold this as well as do it, but as I adjust the length of these, alright, so I can feel the approximate length, right? So I can feel the approximate length of these, right? I'm trying to get this on the camera. And then I can feel when I'm getting to the end of the string in my hand there, yeah? I can feel that now they're about the same length. And the same's happened on the other side. And they're all finished the same length. Look at that, it's like magic, alright? Like that. Yeah? And then what I'm going to do is finally, on these loops, now this might go wrong now because I've dropped it all and forgotten which side's which. But on the sides, that's the right one, on the sides that I wasn't pulling on, so the opposite side of the loop, I was pulling on this side to shorten this side of the string, right? If I pull on this here, right, this is going to get shorter. I want the opposite side. I want the opposite side on both of them, and I'm going to give that a pull, like that. Alright, just to tighten that knot up. And that ain't coming undone now. Alright, and they're still nice and the same length. Yeah. Same length, nice and neat. All looks good. Yeah, tied at the same right height. All nice and flat. Yeah. And then I'm going to give, once it's on, I'm going to give this a pull here on both sides. So I get that beautiful shape. Pull the mendari here forward like that. So I'm not looking like an octopus. Yeah, like that. Look at that. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. That's how you need to do it. All right. Don't use any other sort of ways of tying the knots. I don't want to hear, oh, well, I learned a different way or anything like that. I don't care about your different ways. If you're going to do a different way, don't ask me how to do it. Because people tell me that all the time. I'm having a bit of a a tantrum about this at the minute because it's the first thing loads of people say. Ah, well, I do it a different way. I do a whatever knot or something like that. I don't know the names of all the knots, right? I wasn't in the Boy Scouts or anything like that. So all I know is if you do it that way, which is the right way, right, you get the right men knot, okay? It looks right, as you can see, as I've just demonstrated. Okay, so if you want to change that and do a different style of tying it with 2 loops, up, downs, left, right, all spin it all around, you want to do all that, fine, but don't ask me why it didn't work, all right, because I told you how to do it, okay? I'm not talking to you that asked the question specifically, because I know you didn't say that, but I can see it come in the comments, all right, because I get it every time, yeah? Just do what I said, and you'll do it all right, okay? Right, next one. Hi Andy, what kind of training would top kendo players do outside of the dojo? For example, plyometrics or yoga. I don't really know what plyometrics are, but some people probably do yoga, but I don't think it's massively common amongst top like elite kendo competitors. Maybe certainly not amongst the you know, the ones I know, the majority of ones I know. I do know that what they will do is they'll definitely do strength and weight training, and they'll definitely do cardio training, and they'll definitely do running. One person who I was talking to this few years ago now, but they were the All Japan champion at the time. They practice kendo 6 days a week, and on the 7th day they ran 10 kilometers. That was their basic routine. So that's the, you know, I guess it depends on the particular person or their whatever team they're with, sort of their trainer's idea, yeah. But for the most part, it generally involves weight training and cardio training. Okay, I don't know much about if there's much doing yoga. I'm sure there's some that do though, and I'm sure there's benefits to doing it. Never tried it, so I wouldn't know. Andy, thanks again for everything you do, all the videos and the great game. No, thank you very much. I've got 2 rather cultural questions. Ooh, okay. I was watching a popular anime. Okay, well, you're well out of my field of expertise now. And when the soldiers are given an order, they say yokai, as in yes, sir, as a type of response. Okay. Is this appropriate to reply to a sensei? And 2, I heard facial hair like beards and mustaches can be seen as aggressive in Japanese culture, even stubble. Is this true or an old wives' tale? So, interesting. So 1, the word is not actually yokai, it's ryokai, which I know sounds similar, but if I was to write it in like English letters, whoops, it's ryokai, yeah? Not yokai. Yokai is like sounds like you're saying like a ghost or a beastie or something. If I put if I write it in the kanji, it looks like that, and it just means affirmative, yeah. And it's quite a reasonable formal way of saying it, but you wouldn't say it to sensei. It's not appropriate to say it to sensei actually at all. Well, I mean, not at all. There are some situations where it's okay. It's best just to say hi. Okay, just say hi. That's the easiest. Hi. Hi. All right. Just say that. Don't use ryokai. It's a little bit not complicated, but just say hi. All right. Next one, about the facial hair. That was probably the case in the past. I don't think it's like that so much these days, because a lot of Japanese guys have some sort of facial hair. It depends though. I think it's probably not considered acceptable in like a very corporate environment. So if you were sort of working in business, there's probably some, especially traditional companies, that wouldn't want you to have facial hair. But for the most part, nobody's going to judge you if you've got a mustache or a beard. You don't see like big massive beards like you see in the West, really. But you know, lots of people have like a mustache or goatee, or something like that. As long as it looks sort of neat and tidy, I don't think anyone's gonna have an issue with it. An interesting one is people will probably react more to brightly dyed hair than they would to facial hair. Like if somebody, especially a man, but you know, it can be a woman as well, if they were to dye their hair blonde, for example, which is very unnatural in Japan, of course, that would probably be seen as more, I don't know if aggressive is the right word, but like a little bit, people would be like, "Ooh, okay," and you could probably get in trouble at work for it. So yeah, I mean, I worked in some pretty traditional Japanese companies over there, and yeah, we had staff that sort of got reprimanded for dyeing their hair, and it wasn't even like it wasn't blonde. It was like brown, like chocolate brown. So yeah. Okay, next one. Hello Andy, sorry if this question sounds a bit odd, but as my kendo has been improving over the years, I started to develop calluses on my feet. Given how important your feet are to performing strong kendo, I'm wondering which is preferable in the long term: maintain the calluses to harden the base of my feet for sliding and impacting the floor, or is it more beneficial to moisturize them after practice to keep the skin more elastic and smooth? I think probably keeping them moisturized and more elasticated is probably better. Not that I do that myself. My feet are like, I think they're rougher than the soles of my shoes. But yeah, I think probably like if I was more sensible, I might probably take more care to do that. I probably should take more care to do that, to be honest. Maybe I'll try. Okay. Because the problem is having the hard skin, it can be all right, but one, it can cause you to lose grip, and two, it eventually gets to the point where it has to come off or peels off, and that can be pretty painful when it happens, actually, especially like if you like when I was training like at my sort of hardest, when I was doing sort of 7 or 8 keikos a week, I was getting really thick dead skin on the soles of my feet, especially on my left foot, and then I'd get a blister underneath it, so it was like right underneath like this massive layer of skin, and then if it got really bad, then I'd have to kind of cut the skin off, and then I'd end up with it. Anyway, it was gross, and it was painful, so probably better to try to keep the skin moisturized if you can. Next one, Fish Sensei. Recently, one of my senpai has been telling me that now ahead of me is figuring out how to create that explosive moment of the strike. It ought to be like a blink, she said. I wanted to ask, so many aspects of Kendo goes into creating that moment. What do you think is needed? What advice do you have for a student trying to really create it? My apologies if the question is a little bit vague. I want to clarify rather than a solution to a problem. I wish to bring this up as a means to open discussion as to learn from your experience. As a second question, I remember you saying that Japanese is very necessary for a good Kendoka, as otherwise the amount of resources becomes very limited. What Japanese resources, books and everything else do you recommend for Kendoka who knows Japanese but hasn't really read much on Kendo yet? Thank you very much, and once again, oserena dorimasu. Okay, so well, the first thing about the explosive moment, it's actually a lot more simple than it sounds. What it is you need more tame, which is sort of power stored up in your left leg in your kamae. So it's like a coiled spring in your left leg, so that you're able to strike at any moment. It doesn't mean like you have to do some sort of Jedi mastery on the other person. It just means that your left calf has to be primed and ready to go when you're in your kamae. If it's not, you're not in kamae. You're just standing with a shinai in front of you, yeah? But your left leg has to be primed, slightly putting pressure downwards and behind against the floor, so that when you're ready, bam! Not bam this way, but here, when's it gonna happen? Bam! There, yeah? That's the kind of feeling that you want. It's a bit like there's two sort of analogies that I'd use. One is you've got like on the outside, it's like that swan or the duck or swan or whatever the analogy is, that's swimming along, and it looks serene and calm, but underneath its feet are going mad. It's a bit like that, but your feet aren't going mad, but they are, but not in the movement sense. But instead, they've got all the power built up, and they're just underneath your hakama. That's underneath underneath the water. That's like my accent slipped there. The underneath the hakama, which is the water, and you're there. But you up on the upper side, you're sort of serene and calm. But at any moment, bam, you can strike, and it's like that feeling's like in a Western movie or something like that, when the two guys are facing off and they're going to draw. You know, they've got the hands over the guns like this. And which one's going to go first? And it's whichever one is ready to go, bam, like this, and they're not going to go this way, are they? Right? So it's that sort of mental tension as well as that physical tension in your leg that you need to sort of work on. But it depends on what level you are. If you're below third dan, don't worry too much about it. And about the Japanese bit, yeah, I mean, look, when I say it's necessary for good Kendo, I didn't say it's necessary, but I do think that like being able to understand Japanese, at least to a certain level, is required to get access to certain elements of Kendo which you wouldn't otherwise. There's fantastic Kendoka in the world that don't speak Japanese, so I'm not saying that you must speak Japanese to be a great Kendoka, because that's demonstrably not true. But being able to understand some of the resources that are available is a massive shortcut, shall we say. Some of them are books, things, but a lot of the best books are in English anyway, like the definitive guide for Kendo instruction, is it called? The official guide for Kendo instruction. But even then, like, I have both versions of that so that I can check the translation, because sometimes the translation can be vague. So I'll check the Japanese one, which can sometimes give more clarity. Even some things like the official Kendo instruction videos that the All Japan Kendo Federation put out, they've got them in English and in Japanese. They're super old now, right? I know they're super old, but they're still like gold. But the Japanese one actually has a few more details than the English one, for example. But the biggest, by far and away, the biggest and most important benefit you get in Kendo from understanding Japanese is twofold. First is you by understanding Japanese, you start to understand Japanese culture, and Kendo is Japanese culture. It's inseparable from it. Okay, so you have to understand Japanese culture in Kendo. Okay, it's massive, actually. So that's one. But two is most of the best senseis in the world don't speak English, okay, or any other language than Japanese. Yeah, and if you can understand Japanese and they know you can understand Japanese, then you have access to the best resources available in all of Kendo, which are those senseis. I mean, when I say you have access to them, you don't have access to them, but you have access to understanding them when you gain access to them, if that makes sense. It's like a really convoluted video game in it, where you've got to get through all the different levels. But anyway, you know what I'm saying? That's the point that I was trying to make. Okay, last one. Hi Andy, I have a couple of equipment questions. First, what's the best way to reshape the côté baton to the correct cylindrical shape? I've adjusted the lacing on mine a few times, but they keep ending up in a cone shape rather than a nice cylinder. Second, we have a young man of about 9 in our club struggling a bit with his men himo. Guidelines say to cut the himo to about 40 centimeters, but is there any guidance for kids? Is it the same length, or can it be cut to a manageable length as long as it doesn't look too short in proportion to the size? Thanks so much for taking the time to answer. Okay, so the côté baton thing, yeah, I mean, you're just gonna have to experiment with it a bit until you get the hang of it. It is about adjusting the lacing so that the lacing is, and that's the himo, by the way. The lacing on the himo is like evenly distributed in terms of the tightness along the whole baton. If the baton is like, if it's tighter towards the wrist, then it's naturally gonna cone out, isn't it? All right, so that's one thing. And the good thing you can do is, like, at the end when you tie it, I like to tie that a little bit tighter. So just pull it a little bit so that the end, because you know you lace it all up, and then where you tie it's at this end, right, at the elbow end. So if you give that a little bit of a tighter pull, it'll pull that end of the côté baton in a little bit, and then you just got to shape it with your hands. Okay, is what I'd say there. And about the menhimo, look, what you're talking about is this length, yeah. Oh, taking it off there, I don't know how it's falling off, but let me just put it back so you can see. So what we're talking about in this is the length of here from the knot to the end has to be within 40 centimeters. It's within 40 centimeters. It's not about 40 centimeters. It's within 40 centimeters. Now, that doesn't mean you should, you know, yeah, as you've said rightly, that the length of that should be proportionate. But it doesn't have to be 40 centimeters, especially on a kid. Like on a kid of about 9, yeah, I'd cut it down so it looks proportionate with his height. Now, what that means as well for us adults is the length, it doesn't have to be exactly 40 centimeters. It can be 35 centimeters or whatever. As long as it's not like 15 centimeters or 20 centimeters or something, it looks totally stupid with these little tiny himo. All right. So that's the answer to that. Really, it's a quick and easy one. Yeah. You just yeah, cut it to his height. That's it. Okay, thank you for joining me today. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Shop at KendoStar. Bye-bye.